Ahoy, this is Zdenka. Highly requested tutorial is here. Let's go through the entire camera app on iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max. What is the fastest way to open up the camera app? I'm finding that you can do it very quickly two ways. When your screen is locked, just simply tap on the screen to activate and then just swipe left. Let's do it another way. The screen is locked again. I'm going to double tap the camera button to open up the app. The first tap activates the screen and the second tap opens up the app. Another way is to unlock the screen and hit the camera icon at the bottom right. The last option is to open the camera by selecting the camera app. What you may not know is that when you tap and hold the camera icon, this menu pops up, which will take you to one of these camera modes. Some of these features you can customize in the system settings. This is for those who want to tweak the phone completely around. Now that we are in camera app, let's start explaining photo mode. The shutter button is first, then I'm going to go through all these icons. There are several ways you can take a photo. Press one time the camera control button on the side to take the shot. If you press a volume button, you will take a photo. It doesn't matter which one you press, they both do the same thing. The last option is simply pressing the shutter button on the screen. Let's return to volume buttons, as there are a few more things you can do with them. If you press and hold the volume button, you will take photos in burst mode. This is great for sports or any action photography, as it will take a whole bunch of photos. Once you are done taking the burst photos, go to your gallery. At the top left corner, you'll see burst. Once you hit that, it will take you to the whole set. You can go through all the photos and choose your favorites. Once you are done with the selection, it will ask you if you want to keep everything or only the favorite photos. So this was the volume button. Now, if you are finding that you are accidentally pressing the volume button and taking burst photos, you can disable this feature in the settings. If you press and hold the down volume button in photo mode, you will record a video. It will keep recording as long as you keep holding the volume down button. Once you release it, it will stop recording. The shutter button on the screen can also do more than just take a single photo. In a quick take, you can do several things. If you press and drag the shutter button to the left, you will take burst photos. The same thing as the volume up button, I already explained that earlier. If you press and hold the shutter button, you will record a video. You can also drag it to the right and lock it so it keeps recording the video. You can pause recording and resume anytime. You can also take a photo while you are recording a video. To stop recording, press the red square. There is one big advantage when it comes to recording videos in photo mode, and that is zoom. Let me show you. I am in video mode now. When I go to 8 times zoom, tap on it and hold, this zoom wheel shows up. You can see that the maximum zoom is 24 times. That is in video mode. When you go to photo mode and do the same thing, select 8 times, tap and hold, you can see that we are getting more zoom, up to 40 times. So if you really need to record something very far away, you can reach it here in photo mode instead of video mode. Just a quick reminder that digital zoom is not the same as optical zoom. The more you zoom in digitally, the worse quality you're gonna get. I always recommend getting physically closer instead of using digital zoom. Or you can get external lenses such as reflex super telephoto lens. I'll link it below for those interested. The only disadvantage is that any external telephoto lenses cannot be used in the native camera app. You have to use third-party app. Let's return to zoom in native camera app. Besides zooming in and out with zoom ring, you can zoom in and out with your fingers on the screen. You will always see the zoom value below. Let's talk about the main one-time camera, which is also called fusion camera. This feature is only available in photo mode. When you tap on the one-time camera, you can switch between additional lenses. There are 3, 24mm, 28mm, and 35mm. They just give you a slightly different focal distance. If you go to camera settings, go to Fusion Camera, here you can choose your default lens. On the other note, you can also disable them if you don't want to use them. Let's return to photo mode and explore all icons. The first one I want to cover is for format and resolution. HEIF is a compressed format similar to JPEG. It's a newer format. RAW is for those who want to edit the photos in Lightroom, for example. It is an uncompressed file with a lot more data, so it will give you higher quality. If you don't care about editing in Lightroom, just want to share photos from your phone, keep it on HEIF. The best quality you will get if you select 48 megapixels, but keep in mind that the files will be bigger, so it will take up more storage. Let's talk about focus and exposure. When you tap on the screen, you can select what you want in focus. It is also going to select exposure for the subject you are focusing on. The subject will be well lit, but you might end up with overblown highlights in the background. In that case, tap and hold to lock the focus, and then with the sun slider, adjust the exposure. Smartphones generally overexpose a bit. If you will be taking a series of photos of the same subject or same landscape, you can hit the EV icon, adjust the exposure here, so your set of images have the same exposure. I usually bring it down to -0.3 or lower. Let's move on to the right side. The first icon is night mode. When you tap on that, you will enable long exposure for taking photos at night. The darker it is, the longer the shutter will stay open. You will see the number of seconds next to it. It will give you a much brighter image. However, to take photos in night mode, you have to use a tripod. Otherwise, the photos will turn out blurry. If you need to take quick handheld photos in low light or at night, make sure this is off. Otherwise, you will have blurry photos. Flash is self-explanatory. When you enable it, it will fire flash automatically when the camera feels that it's needed. I avoid flash as it gives this really flat look. I try to use any available light sources instead. Do me a favor, give it a thumbs up if you are getting value out of this video, and consider subscribing as it really helps the algorithm and me being able to create more tutorials like these. Thank you very much for your support. Let's hit these dots that pull out control panel. I just covered the flash, so let's move on to live mode. There are two options when it comes to enabling this mode. Hit one time to turn on automatic live mode. Tap again to enable always on live mode. What does it do? Let's take a photo with some movement in it. Once you go to the gallery, hit the live icon. Here you can create an animation, loop or bounce. If you take a photo of moving water, such as waterfall or river, you can enable long exposure. That will create the silky smooth water effect. You can also turn live mode off. Since we are in the gallery, when you hit this icon on the right, it will create a spatial scene out of your photo. When you move your phone around, you can see this cool effect. The next icon is a timer. This is very useful. For example, if you want to take a selfie with a group of people, place the phone on a tripod, enable 3, 5, or 10-second timer, press the shutter button, and run to hit the pose. Exposure is here as well. I covered that earlier. When you hit the icon, the exposure control will pop up. Let's go back to the navigation bar. What are styles? It looks like filters, but these are not filters. Those are looks that are integrated with all the iPhone cameras. When you swipe left or right, you can select any of these you like. You can also customize each style by dragging the dot. If you drag the image to the right, it will get more saturated, and you will bring out the colors more. If you drag left, the image will get desaturated, and the colors will be more dull. If you drag it up, you will make the image brighter. If you drag it down, the image will be darker. If you want to go back to default, just hit the undo icon. The great thing about this feature on iPhone 17 Pro and 17 Pro Max is that you can still adjust the styles after you take the photo. Simply select the photo and hit edit. There it is on the left. This is where you can customize the style. The aspect ratio icon is next. There are 3 available: 1:1, 4:3, and 16:9. 1:1 is square look for social media, 4:3 is more used for portraits, and 16:9 is typically used for landscapes. The last icon is night mode. I already explained it earlier, this is just another way of enabling this mode. Let's leave the control panel and talk about macro photography. When you point the camera close to any subject, this little flower icon will show up. When you hit the icon, macro mode will be enabled. You can see how sharp everything got. Just shoot away. The macro feature on the go on this iPhone is quite good. However, those who are into macro photography and want to take it to the next level, to get results like these, you need an external lens. I have a tutorial explaining how it's done. I'll link it below. Another great use of the camera is when you point at a text. This little icon will show up. You don't even need to take a photo. Just hit the icon, and now you can do any of these. Let's see all the options. Copy, select all, look up, translate, and share. There is also a writing tool. You can change the text, proofread, or rewrite in friendly, professional, or concise style. Photo mode with the rear 48 megapixel cameras has been covered. Let's switch it to the front or selfie camera. That has been upgraded to 18 megapixels. Selfie photos you can take in HEIF format, but also in RAW format. You can take a close-up or a bit wider angle selfie. If you hit this icon, you can take a selfie in landscape mode. This is something I really appreciate, as I don't have to turn my arm anymore, and it's also not visible in a shot. You just comfortably hold the smartphone like this. Another icon that I should explain is this at the top, which is the center stage camera. When you hit that, there are 2 options you can enable: auto zoom and auto rotate. When this is enabled, when more people come to the frame to join me for a photo, it will zoom out to fit the group. If even more people come, the group gets bigger, and it will then rotate to a landscape photo, making sure everyone can fit. There is one more icon that pops up here, and that is portrait mode. When you hit the icon, you can select the effect you need: natural light, studio light, contour light, stage light mono, and high key light mono. You don't really have to choose the portrait mode before you take the shot, as you can always do that after you take the shot. The option will be automatically there, no matter if you take the photos in photo mode with selfie or rear cameras. Once you take the photo, here is where you can enable or disable portrait mode. When you hit edit, here is where you can change the effect, and you can also change the depth of field. When you drag the slider to a lower number, you will get more blur. When you drag the slider to a higher number, you will get more sharpness in the background. The dot is for the suggested focal length. It is best to zoom in on a photo and check the edges around the hair. Then adjust the depth further so you don't get any smudged edges. Let's leave photo mode and go to video. Let's go to ProRes, resolution, and frame rate. Most people won't film in ProRes, but just to explain it, you can film in log color profile or HDR. Log will give you a very washed out look. It is because it needs to be color graded later on in the post. This color profile keeps all details in highlights and shadows, so it gives a lot more flexibility in a post. Apple has a conversion LUT that can be used when you film in ProRes the files will be huge. If you want to film in 60 or 120 frames per second in ProRes, you have to use an external memory card. I use Zyke, I'll link it below. Let's just keep ProRes to off. When it comes to resolution, you can film in 1080p, which is HD, or 4K. I usually film in 24 frames per second and only film in higher frame rates when I want to slow down the video in a post. You can film up to 120 frames per second in 4K. Let's close this. When you record a video, you can pause the video and resume, as well as take a photo while you are recording. In video mode, you can also film in macro mode. The same as in photo mode, the flower pops up here. Let's pull out the control panel. I am only going to explain what I haven't explained in this video yet, so let's skip flash and exposure and go to action mode. If you don't have gimbal handy but need to capture super smooth shots, especially if you are running, this is the mode to use. While you're recording, you're not going to see it yet. It will look all shaky. When you play it back, that is when you see a very smooth video. The resolution will drop to 0.8K as it has to crop lots of the frame to stabilize the footage. Dual capture is another mode that is quite handy. Once you enable that, one of the rear cameras and the selfie camera will record at the same time. You can move the selfie's small frame to any corner. You can select any rear camera before you start recording. Once you start recording, you can pause the video, resume, take a photo, and also digitally zoom. You cannot switch rear cameras while you are recording. That has to be done before you hit the record button. Let's leave the dual capture mode and switch the cameras to a selfie camera. And the same thing goes as in photo mode. You can switch between vertical and landscape mode. When you go to control panel, you can see that you can also enable dual capture mode here. Let's stay a little bit longer in video mode. You may not know that there is so much more you can do with audio after you record a video. Here is a video I recorded earlier. Let's hit edit and go to audio mix. By default, standard mode is selected. There are other modes you can change it to in frame, studio, and cinematic. The slider below lets you further adjust the background voice balance. Let's move to the next mode, and that is cinematic mode. The resolution offered is 4K and 1080p at 24 or 30 frames per second. Cinematic mode keeps the subject in focus and the background blurry. You can film with 1x main camera, 2x telephoto, and also zoom in digitally 3x. You can also film with selfie camera. What you can control here is aperture. You can adjust it before or after you film the clip. To film a clip, tap on the subject to select focus. You can create a focus pull by tapping on another subject. Another option would be tapping on the subject and tapping again to enable out of focus tracking lock. It will keep the subject always in focus. Once you're done filming, you can still change everything around. Here is a clip I filmed earlier. It is a clip where I was changing focus from one item to the other. Once you hit edit, it will take you to manual tracking and aperture controls. As you can see, there are 2 keyframes on the timeline. This is when I tapped on the subject to change the focus. First of all, I can completely disable this manual focus by tapping the icon here. I can enable it again. If I want to erase any of these keyframes, I just tap on it. The trash shows up, I can hit delete. I can also create a new keyframe by selecting another subject on the screen to be in focus. Aperture I mentioned before. Here you can adjust the depth of field, how much blur you want in the shot. Slow-mo mode is next. Here you can either film 4K slow motion in 120 frames per second or HD, which is 1080p slow motion in 240 frames per second with rear cameras. When you film slow-mo with selfie camera, it is going to be only HD at 120 frames per second. When you film in 4K at 120 frames per second, you can film with one-time main camera, 2 times telephoto, and zoom in up to 3 times. When you film in HD 240 frames per second, you get more zoom. You can film with ultra-wide camera, one-time main camera, 4 times, and digitally zoom up to 12 times. Hit the shutter and film a clip. It doesn't stop here. Once again, you can adjust completely everything after you record the video. Let's hit edit. First of all, below the clip, you can drag these ends to select where you want the slow motion to happen. You can do the entire clip in slow motion or only select part of the clip. At the right top corner is this clock icon. Hit that. Here you can choose playback speed. If you filmed the clip at 120 frames per second, you can select one of these up to 120 frames per second. If you film the clip at 240 frames per second, you can naturally select playback speed up to 240 frames per second. Alright, moving on to the next mode, and that is time-lapse. This one is very straightforward. The only thing you can really control here is the exposure. You can film time-lapses with ultra-wide camera, main camera, or zoom up to 8 times. Time-lapse can also be filmed with a selfie camera. It is best to use a very sturdy tripod for a static time-lapse. If you want to do motion time-lapse, I suggest Hohem iSteady M7 gimbal, as that one will allow you to program movement directly on the gimbal. It's all linked below in the video description. We've made it all the way to the left when it comes to camera modes. Let's return to photo mode so we can go the opposite way to the right and explore 3 last modes. Portrait photo mode is first. I already mentioned that if you take a photo of a person in regular photo mode, you can turn on portrait mode after. I've noticed when I was taking photos of my dog that in photo mode, I couldn't enable the portrait mode after. For this reason, if you want to ensure that you always take photo in portrait mode, you go here. It works the same way as I explained earlier. All the controls are the same. The only thing I need to mention is that you can take the portrait mode photo with main one-time camera, 2 times and 4 times telephoto. In selfie mode, only vertical photo is enabled. Let's go to spatial mode. What is it? Spatial mode on iPhone 17 Pro lets you capture immersive 3D photos and videos using multiple cameras to record depth information, creating a pop-out 3D effect viewable on the device and stunningly in the Apple Vision Pro headset, making memories feel more real by letting you revisit moments with a sense of presence and depth, enhancing details of subjects. I didn't write this. This is what Google gave it to me. This is what you have to do. Rotate your phone to landscape mode. Now you can take photos or videos. Once you view the photo in the Photos app, just tap the spatial icon. This is how the video will show on the phone. Other option is to view it on Apple Vision Pro, which I don't have. Spatial video will be captured at 1080p in 30 frames per second. The last mode is here, and that is Pano mode. This one is very simple, just follow the arrow to move. For those who don't know, if you tap on the other side, you can do the opposite direction. You can take Pano photos with ultra-wide angle camera or main camera, and it can go up to 8 times zoom. I just want to let you know that this is part 2 video. I already made a video about best camera settings and how to use the camera control button. So I'm gonna link that video below for those interested. Give it a thumbs up if you found this video informative. Don't forget to subscribe for more, and I'll see you in one of those videos next. Ciao, ahoj.